What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to talk about the big idea. That is the new name for this bipartisan proposal that they're trying to put forward when it comes to Social Security reform. We're going to talk about this in detail. We do have some more information to share, so I'm going to share that with you guys in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. Okay, so Senator Cassidy, Senator King, they're still talking about this bipartisan bill that they want to get passed, this Social Security reform bill. Now, right now, we're hearing them talk about the debt ceiling. We're going to be hearing that for the coming weeks. So I don't know exactly when they're going to be able to pass this bill. They're talking about actually passing it this week sometime when it comes to the debt ceiling. I'll do a video where I talk a little bit more about that. But that's the first thing on the agenda. The second thing on the agenda will be Social Security reform. So that's what they'll be talking about after they handle this whole debt ceiling situation. So what I want to do is I want to show you an illustration. You guys know I like to do illustrations. I'm going to show you an illustration of where we are right now when it comes to this bill, the big idea. And actually, we'll call it an idea because that's all it is right now. It's an idea. There's nothing on paper. We don't have senators coming forward and saying they support this idea. It doesn't have major support right now. So it needs to get there. So let's talk a little bit about what it is and how it will work. Now, I have talked about this prior to this video. So I did a video probably about a month ago where I was talking about this, but we do have some more information. So I do want to share that with you, and because maybe that will help you understand exactly how this whole plan is going to work, or how they want this plan to work. Okay, now let's start from the very beginning. So we know we have a trust fund. We know the trust fund is what's in danger right now. The trust fund could run out of money in about 10 years if we do nothing. Okay, so if Congress does nothing, then the trust fund will run out of money. So that's the issue, not Social Security as a whole. So when we're looking at Social Security as a whole, Social Security will still be there. Why? Because we have the FICA tax. That payroll tax is going to Social Security beneficiaries. So it works like this. So the payroll tax, that's going to play a portion, and that will go to benefits. And then whatever's left over, like whatever they need. So let's say, and I'm just throwing numbers out here, but let's say 75% is paid by the payroll tax. And then you're going to need an additional 25%. That's why they need the trust fund. That's where they're drawing from the trust fund. Now, years ago, what was going on is we had so many people in the workforce paying into Social Security, they actually had a surplus. So they had money left over. Let's say the payroll tax they were able to collect like 125%, but they only really needed 100%. And so that 25% would go to the trust fund, and they would just leave it in the trust fund because they knew at some point they might need to pull that money from the trust fund. So since 2010, they've been pulling money from the trust fund. And so that's where the issue is. That's where we're looking at the trust fund depleting. Once the trust fund depletes, then we're going to see a reduction of about anywhere from 23 to 25%. They're not exactly sure right now. It's just, these are all estimates. So in 10 years, you could see if you're receiving Social Security in 10 years, you could see a cut of about 23% if nothing is done. So that's why Congress needs to act. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I want to show you what they want to do, okay? Because this is what they want to do with this plan. So if I shrink this down a little bit and we start looking at the big idea, this big idea plan. Okay, now one thing that I do want to mention, the trust fund right now, it is getting returns of about 1 to 3%. Okay, so money, so they have cash on hand and they also have money in bonds, treasury bonds. So they're getting between 1 to 3% returns. Not very good, and it's under what inflation is. Inflation's right now, we know it's at about 5%, but over the years, it's gone up, it's gone down, and we saw last year was up as high as what, 9%. So now that it's starting, the inflation's starting to come down. That's good, but the returns don't reflect what we're seeing when it comes to inflation, right? So if it's, let's say you get 3% return, but inflation's much higher than 3%, well, now that dollar is not as strong, so you're losing even more money. You're depleting the trust fund even faster. So what they want to do with this big idea is they want to borrow money. And they are saying that over the years, when you're looking at the stock market, you can see returns of about 8%. Okay, so that's what they're saying. And this is kind of a conservative number that they're putting out there. You could see higher returns, you could see lower returns, but they're just saying they're going in the middle. About 8% is what you'll see in returns. Now, the only danger is this is a gamble. Okay, so 8% returns. There's more risk if it's an 8% return. The reason why the trust fund is in treasury bonds is because it's not a big risk, but it will be a big risk if you put it in the stock market. And that's what they want to do. They want to take that risk. And so that's where we're seeing some politicians are saying, yes, this is a great idea. Some politicians are saying, I don't know about this, because if we do this and we lose money and the stock market crashes, this is borrowed money. Okay, that's what we have to understand. This is not leftover money. It would have been a perfect situation, and I know hindsight is 20/20, and we're going back and looking at things, but back when the payroll tax, when they had excess money, when they had a surplus, they could have taken some of that money from the surplus, because at the time, you didn't need the trust fund. All you needed was the payroll tax. And so when you had that surplus at that time, if you invested that money, that would have been a better option. But now, since they're drawing from the trust fund and they want to borrow more money, and they're not borrowing money from the trust fund, they just want to borrow money from the American people. That's what they want to do. So now if you want to do that, you're basically swiping your credit card to invest in the stock market. And just think how risky that is. If I had money or I had a credit card that said, you know what, I'm going to invest in the stock market. I'm going to go ahead and charge my credit card $5,000, and then I'm going to invest that money. Hopefully I'll see a return really fast. If I don't see a return fast, then I'm going to have to pay interest, and I'm going to have to continue paying on that debt. And so that's what they want to do. They want to borrow money for returns. We don't know how much. We don't know how much they want to borrow. And you have some economists saying it would cost like $1 trillion. They would have to borrow $1 trillion in order to see the returns that they need to see in order to pay down or basically keep Social Security afloat. Okay, so now the worst case scenario, and we kind of talked about the worst case scenario. We have a stock market crash. That would be bad. And if we had a stock market crash, what are they going to do? You still need to pay interest. So what are you going to do? You're going to need to borrow more money. And so we'll go deeper into debt, because this money we're borrowing is going to add to our debt. And so that's the huge risk. Now, the best case scenario is this will be able to supply Social Security to about 75%. Okay, so they would still need to do some more cuts, but I say some more cuts, or they would need to do something else. I won't just say cuts, because cuts, that's not the only option. So this would supply about 75% of what they need if they were to borrow the money, invest it, and do all that. Now, they're going to need to do something else. You can't just borrow the money. So in order for us to have a program that is solvent, have a Social Security program that's solvent for 75 more years, they're going to need to address another issue. And that would be, and I kind of put these in red and blue. Red is kind of a Republican talking point, stuff that Republicans have been talking about. And then the blue is what Democrats have been talking about as far as reforming Social Security. So the first thing here is raise the full retirement age. We hear a lot of politicians talking about this, raise the full retirement age. So this could be something that we see along with the borrowing of this money that they need to do, okay, investing of the money. So raise full retirement age, that would be one thing. Raise the cap. We hear Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all these different senators, Democrats, talking about raising the cap, okay? So that's something else that they could potentially do. Payroll tax increase. They can increase the payroll tax. Right now it's at 6.2%. That's how much you pay, and then the employer pays another 6.2%, and then all that money goes to the Social Security Administration to help pay benefits. So they can do that. They can also raise the minimum retirement age. So along with raising the full retirement age, they can raise the minimum retirement age. So the minimum retirement age right now is 62. They can raise that up to 65. They can also raise up Medicare. That's something else, because Medicare is also in jeopardy of going insolvent, at least the trust fund is. So that's something that they're going to need to address by 2031, so a little bit sooner. 2031 for Medicare, 2033 for Social Security. So they've been talking about raising that full retirement age, but they might actually bump up the minimum retirement age, bump it up to 65. So 65 for minimum retirement age, 70 for a full retirement age. And so that's kind of what we've been hearing about when it comes to raising the full retirement age. So they have to do something else. Now, what's interesting is I put raise the cap on here, but raising the cap alone would get them pretty much there. They wouldn't have to do anything else if they just raise the cap. The problem with raising the cap is you do not have Republicans supporting raising the cap. They don't want to raise, when I say raise the cap, just so you guys know what I'm saying, 160,200 is the cap. Okay, that's the most that if you make more than that, you don't have to continue paying into the payroll tax. Okay, so they want to raise that. And what Senator Bernie Sanders wants to do is he wants to start raising the cap at 250,000. So 250,000 or more, you're going to have to pay into the payroll tax again. So from, let's say you make 160,200, that's the cutoff. You don't have to pay any more payroll tax, and so you won't have to pay it until you get up to 250,000. Once you get to 250,000, then you'll have to start paying into the payroll tax again. So that's what Senator Bernie Sanders wants to do. Now, this isn't going to fly with the White House. President Biden has already indicated he's not raising taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. So what that would mean is if they're going to raise the cap, it's going to have to be 400,000 or more. And so we would see it from 160,200. That's where you don't have to pay into the payroll tax, and we'll go all the way up to 400,000. You still wouldn't have to pay into the payroll tax, and then once you hit 400,000, you have to pay into the payroll tax again. That's what President Biden wants to do. So, and that, of course, you wouldn't be able to collect as much money, and so you might need to draw from some other areas as well. You might not be able to just raise the cap. But with Senator Bernie Sanders raised the cap 250,000, that would 100% cover this issue when it comes to Social Security reform. Not only will it cover the issue with Social Security reform, but it would allow for the $2,400 raise for Social Security, or the $200 per month raise. Now, another thing, they were talking about borrowing money, right? So if they borrow money, and let's say the returns, and I'm just throwing a number out here, I don't know this, but let's just say the returns look like 15% instead of 8%, which they're thinking. Okay, let's say it's 15%. We have some good years. Well, they might have some money left over. Now, with that money left over, they might not have to go into raising the full retirement age. But the only thing is, if you already raise the full retirement age, you raise the full retirement age. They're not going to be able to go back on that. So they don't know. They can't predict the future. So let's just say they already raised that full retirement age. Okay, so let's say that's already done. So they'll go through this and they'll say, okay, we're not raising taxes. Republicans aren't going to go for raising taxes. So they raise the full retirement age and they borrow money. They see returns of 15%. And so now they'll have money left over. With that leftover money, they can now provide some type of a bonus. And we won't say a raise per se, because it wouldn't be anything that would be every year, because you don't know. The stock market's going to go up and down. So some years you might see a good return, some years you might not see a good return. And so let's say we see that good return of 15%. They could at that point add some type of a bonus, maybe, and I don't want to call it a stimulus check, but additional money for Social Security, right? So a bonus check that you would receive if you're receiving Social Security. So you could see something like that. Now, Senator Cassidy has indicated there could be money left over. If there's money left over, that would mean an increase for Social Security. And so that is something that they've been talking about as well. But by far right now, I think Senator Bernie Sanders' plan is the best when it comes to people receiving Social Security, okay? Because it would address the trust fund, it would also pay that $200 per month. Okay, so that's something that it might not get the support that it needs, but it is probably the best plan that we've heard of when it comes to reforming Social Security and helping people who are currently receiving Social Security. So in a nutshell, that's what we're looking at when it comes to this big idea plan. And right now, it's still an idea. We haven't seen it on paper. Once we see it on paper, then maybe we'll know a little bit more about how they want to move forward with this, because what we don't know is we know that they want to borrow money. We know that they want to invest money, but we don't know what else they want to do in order to get this plan to be 100%, because right now it would be about 75%. We need to get to 100%. So they're going to have to do some other things. And so that's what they're trying to figure out right now. They're trying to figure out what other things can they do to this plan in order to make it 100%. And so I want to know what you guys think about the plan. Let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.